Hello everyone, welcome to another Watchful Software webinar. And today our theme is on how to leverage Office 365 with RightsWatch. Our agenda today, first we'll do some introductions and some house rules. And next, we'll step on how we do and how RightsWatch works. And next, we will have a live demo and a small Q&A session in the end. So my name is Katia Franco. I serve as a product marketing manager for Watchful Software. And some house rules for today. You are all muted centrally, so you don't need to mute and unmute yourself. And this webinar is being recorded, and you will have access to it on our website later on. So don't worry on print screening this presentation or recording it yourself, because it will be available for you. In the end, we will have a small Q&A session, so you are welcome to enter any questions using the questions feature in the GoToWebinar control panel. So, many companies today are moving to Office 365, and RightsWatch, as you will see in this presentation, is fully compatible to Office 365. So, RightsWatch does basically dynamic data center classification. And what do we mean by that? To discover what data is truly sensitive within your organization is obviously the first step. The next is who should have access to it inside and outside your organization. How is the data to be handled? And finally, when should the classification change in the data, or if it should change over time? And these questions can all be answered by RightsWatch by setting up and enforcing the defined corporate security rules, which can be triggered based on context, and metadata. And does this by relieving the user from the workload and overhead of having to know, understand, and apply your corporate policy rules. So how we do it to let people share information between each other. First, by implementing a multi-level security model, and by being able to classify not only current files and email, but also previously existing files, legacy files. And then by classifying the information according to your predefined levels of classification and according to your user roles, by marking and tagging all documents. So let's say that you write an email and classify it as secret because it has sensitive information for your company, like customer data or forecasting data, for example. When you send it to other users, only the users with the appropriate credentials will be able to perform a certain set of actions. For instance, a user with access to public information only won't be able to open your email because it's classified as secret. Again, a user with access to secret information will be able to read it or print it if it's what your corporate policy allows him to do. And finally, a user with access to top secret information will be able to have full access and do any type and perform any type of action to this email or document. So let's see this live. And please note that I'm using my production environment. So what you're about to see is not a demo environment. It's my own system, my own laptop. So let's start with Outlook. I'm opening Outlook and I'm opening a new email. So let's say I want to send an email outside my company, for example, to johndoe@gmail.com. It's an external user. So you can see that without me doing anything, clicking in any button, RightsWatch automatically classifies this email as a do not disclose. Identifies the email as external and classifies it as do not disclose. So let's say I want to send confidential information and I force the classification to be confidential. You can see that RightsWatch educates the user and it warns the user that some recipients might not be able to open this email because it's an email classified as confidential. And according to Watchful Software's policy rules, confidential information cannot be sent outside the company. So what are the options that the system gives us? We can downgrade the classification and classify this as public. And yes, okay, we can send public information to external users. So no problem. And the other option is to, okay, I really want to send confidential information. I need to send this information, but I cannot send it to external users. So I have to remove the recipient. And I can send it to internal users inside my company. So again, just showing another feature. Again, it identifies the email as external. And if I type internal use only in the subject of my email, because I will have in this email internal use only information. Let's see what happens. The system keeps the classification. However, the system prevents me from sending this email. It grays out the send button. So it means that in my company corporate and information security policy, I cannot send internal use only information to external emails. And the system blocks me from and prevents me from sending. This is an enforced type of classification. The previous type of classification is a suggested classification. It doesn't prevent me from taking an action, it suggests me an action. This type of classification prevents me from taking an action, prevents me from sending this email to an outside user. So, another feature, yet again, for example, let's say that I want to attach an email to attach a document to this email. For example, a text file. Let's see what happens. I drag and drop into the email, and the system automatically classifies it and protects it. You can see that previously we had, I will do it again, a text file, and the system protects it and it transforms it into a P text file, a protected text file. I can open it with the Microsoft Sharing app, and you can see that it's classified as internal and it's protected with RMS. So, moving on into Microsoft Word, for example. So, I have a new Microsoft Word document, and here you can see that my account is Microsoft Office 365, so I'm working fully on Office 365, and let's check the metadata of this file, the properties of the file. It's saying that the company is Watchful Software and the category is internal. So this is to be an internal document. So let's say I want to save this file into my desktop. Okay, so the Watchful Software corporate policy rules sets this classification as public. This is a default classification. However, the system is telling me that I'm trying to save a document that has metadata, and that metadata says it is an internal document. So it's suggesting me that I should classify this file as internal instead of public. It's not enforcing any action, it's not forcing me to do anything, it's just suggesting me to do. So let's cancel this and try another thing. For example, let's say that this is a confidential document and I say this is Watchful Software. WSW is an acronym for Watchful Software. Confidential. So this will trigger another type of rule, a content-aware rule. So I will try to save this into my desktop. Okay, so what happens here? This is different. An automatic classification rule was applied as a part of Watchful Software security policy, and the system automatically classifies it as confidential according to the content of the document. So if I try to save this confidential document into Dropbox, for example, well, that is not possible within Watchful Software. And the system prevents me from saving it. As you can see, the save button is grayed out. So the system is preventing me from saving this confidential file into a web drive and explains the user exactly that. So we've seen Outlook, we've seen Word. So if I want to classify just a bunch of files I previously had in my computer, and how can I do that? Well, I set up a folder with a few documents. We have a text document, OneNote, some images, and let's say I want to classify them all at once. We right-click the folder and do classify with right swatch. And as you can see, you have exactly the same interface as you had in Outlook, in Word, in Excel, whatever. And let's say I want to classify all these files as internal. So I choose internal, I click OK, and the system does this for me. I'm opening the folder, and as you can see, all the documents are classified, and not only classified, but also RMS protected. And are RMS protected because according to Watchful's corporate policy rules, a file classified as internal is encrypted. So RMS encrypts the file, and we can open it with the Microsoft Sharing app. So let's say, okay, I have this classified, but I want to reclassify this. Okay, we can do that. Just do exactly the same operation, right-click, classify with right swatch, and I can classify with any other level, but let's say I want to revert this to public, as it was before. So I click OK, but then I have a prompt message. And this message shows me that some files have a context policy rule that is being applied, and that the user needs to accept the suggested policy rule or override it. In this case, these context policy rules states that a file with a certain extension, for example, a JPEG file, has to be classified as internal according to the rules of the company. So I can say yes, and then the system keeps the classification as internal according to the policy rule, or I can say no and override it and revert it to public. So I say no again and again, and let's open it again and see that all the files are reverted to their original state. Let's open it again, and as you can see, I'm opening with Photo Viewer, not the Microsoft Sharing app as previously. So going back to our presentation, just let me just give you some points on how RightsWatch makes it different. It makes it different because we can identify and classify data with a great user experience, as you could just see. We can classify pre-existing data. We can apply data-centric policies to educate users. We are able to enforce role-based access control policies anywhere in the corporate network. We can even support BYOD and are able to classify and protect data on top of mobile device management tools. And finally, we can leverage security information and event management tools for audit trails and forensic analysis. So really, what's in it for you? With RightsWatch, you can have increased security by having fewer incident threats, increased visibility with audit trails, protection extended to mobile, that today is a great trend. We can have improved compliance by taking decisions out of user hands, by having forensic capabilities for tracking, also covering pre-existing files. And you can really increase productivity because you can have a familiar workflow with no extra steps for your users, flexible reclassification abilities, and you can really have and occupy less time in training your coworkers. And finally, you can have decreased costs of having data falling into the wrong hands, decreased costs of responding to incidents, and decreased costs in training to increase awareness, and of course, increased costs in auditing. So this was our presentation. I believe we have time for a couple of questions. We have a question from Anthony. Anthony asks, what about multiple language support? So, RightsWatch actually supports multiple languages, and you can customize any warning, any mark, any tooltip, and as well, you can customize the coloring scheme even for each classification level you define. So you have a lot of flexibility here with RightsWatch. A second question from Joan. Joan asks, you've talked about forensic analysis. How can we do that with RightsWatch? This is an excellent question. Thank you, Joan. Well, RightsWatch has monitoring capabilities and logs every change and access any user does to a document. And it logs it in a SQL database that can feed a CM tool or actually any other tool that can read SQL logs and generate reports or flags to the system administrator. I believe at the moment we don't have any more questions, but you feel free to send us your questions. You feel free to request a demo of RightsWatch if you want. If you have interest in take a deeper look in the system, and send an email to info@watchfulsoftware.com. We are happy to get back to you to answer your questions, to send you any kind of documentation that you want, and to do your demo adapted to you. So I want to remind you again that this webinar is being recorded and you will have access to it later on in our website. So please check it out and have a nice day. See you next time. Bye-bye.